The trial has begun in Paris of 20 people suspected of aiding and abetting the terror attacks that shook the city and the country to its very core 6 years ago. 130 people were killed in attacks at bars, a concert hall, and a football stadium. A convoy of vehicles carrying some of the accused arrived at the court complex where the trial is taking place. They include the man who is believed to be the sole surviving attacker, Salah Abdeslam. The court case is of national significance. For the survivors of the attacks, it brings back very painful memories. DW's Lisa Louis filed this report.
On the 13th of November 2015, Sebastien Dauzet was at his job as a bartender at La Bonne Bière, when his workplace suddenly resembled a battlefield.
At
9:30 that night, I thought I was hearing firecrackers. I didn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, everybody was running. One person had been hit at the leg and was trying to climb these stairs. Then I looked outside and saw the attackers firing their Kalashnikovs. It was like in a movie. I threw myself on the floor and stayed there for a while. At the time, we didn't know that this was just one out of a whole series of attacks. That night, terrorists attacked several other bars across Paris, like La Belle Équipe, 2 kilometers further southeast. Sebastien still finds it hard to return here.
Travaillé dans le quartier, je connaissais des personnes qui étaient dans ce bar, qui fêtaient leur anniversaire.
I used to work in this area and know people who were celebrating their birthday at this bar that night. I have an Italian friend, Phil, whose girlfriend Micheli was at the party. He had proposed to her just 2 months earlier, and we thought she survived. But the next day, we found out that she was killed in the attack.
On a cru que Micheli s'en était sortie. Qu'elle allait bien, et le lendemain, on a appris qu'elle a été décédée. C'était un ange.
She was an angel. She was beautiful, intelligent, kind-hearted. We all miss her. For a long time, I wasn't able to come back here and read her name, even during the commemorations. It's really sad.
Les anniversaires, les gens viennent déposer des fleurs. Ça a été un peu compliqué.
90 of the 130 people killed that night were at the Bataclan Music Hall, where the attackers held hundreds of them hostage for hours. So you were supposed to be here that night?
En fait, j'aurais dû être au Bataclan, en fait.
Yes, I wanted to go to the Bataclan that night, but me and my now ex-girlfriend, who was also working at a bar, weren't able to get time off that Friday. The series of attacks that hit the heart of Sebastien's neighborhood still leaves him feeling vulnerable.
Est-ce que ça va me faire du bien de participer au procès? Je pense pas.
I sense that I should maybe keep my distance from the court case. I don't think it would be good for me, and there are enough other people involved in the trial. And suddenly it hits him that it could have ended differently. You know, I've just realized that it could quite easily have been my name on this commemorative plaque too. That hurts.
Ça fait mal.
Sebastien says he wants to move away, to leave Paris and the reminders of what happened that night behind.
All of France is transfixed by this trial. DW's correspondent Lisa Louis joins us now from the French capital. Lisa, I understand you were in the courtroom today for the opening proceedings. Can you share with us what happened?
Well, yes, I was one of about 24 journalists allowed in during the beginning of the trial. It's very much standard procedure what's happening here today and tomorrow and actually this week. But this standard procedure was somehow interrupted when the president of the court, who talked to every single accused one by one, started to talk to Salah Abdeslam, the main accused who is believed to have driven several of the suicide attackers to Paris that night. Salah Abdeslam when asked for his name and for his job, he said, first of all, I want to state that Allah is the only God, and I have left behind my jobs to become a warrior of Islamic State. And that really showed a lot of people here that were hoping for him to show some remorse, that is probably going to be very unlikely during this trial here.
And this makes it, of course, more significant because he has refused to speak up to now.
Absolutely. He's hardly been talking, just at the very beginning, talking a little bit, I understand, to the investigators. But since then, he has been staying silent. He has been talking to his lawyers, obviously. But, you know, investigators are still trying to find out why that night he did not actually detonate his explosive belt, but he left it behind in Paris and then turned back to Brussels.
Lisa, a lot of superlatives are being used to describe this moment. What makes this trial so historic?
It's a historic trial because it's huge. It's really a mammoth trial. Paris, France has built a specific courtroom for this, invested 8 million euros. It will go on for 9 months. There are 1,800 civil plaintiffs, hundreds of lawyers. People will have weeks to talk about what they had to go through, their trauma that night, but also about the people they lost. One lady actually in advance, she said, it's very important for me to come forward and talk about my daughter who was killed that night and show the attackers that my daughter was not just part of an anonymous crowd. No, she was someone I loved with a real great character, and I want to show them that they killed people and not just anonymous people there. So this is going to be very important for civil plaintiffs, but also for the whole of France, because it is the democratic answer to a horrific act. And France wants to show that, yes, they were attacked, maybe caught unawares, but they will answer to this horrific attack in a democratic way.
In conclusion, Lisa, the trial is expected to last around 9 months. That's quite lengthy. Why?
Well, because there are, as I said, 1,800 civil plaintiffs, hundreds of them, at least 300, will talk about their version of the events. And mind you, the investigation has already quite a large volume, actually. There are about more than 500 dossiers that investigators have gathered over the past few years. And there might be more added to these dossiers. They will ask lots of questions to the accused, but there will also be lots of witnesses, such as, for example, former Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve and former head of state here in France, François Hollande, who was president at the time of the attack. So people are really digging into this case, and they want to they're trying to find out what happened that day. And obviously everybody is kind of hoping that the accused will come forward, give some explanation, maybe, as I said, show some remorse.
Lisa Louis, DW correspondent in Paris, thank you for your reporting.